Hey, what's up, everybody? This week on Angel Road Outdoors, the podcast, we had very special guest, my brother, Uncle Adam, in the house today, during the day, middle of the day, Friday. I turned my computer off for work and turned my phone on airplane mode and recorded a podcast because I'm late. Anyway, we had a really good talk about Adam as a hunter and Adam's season, all of his seasons combined, and realized we probably could do 3 or 4 podcasts about various things that he and I get into. But, I think we had a lot of really great conversations today and a lot of things that I even learned something new today about him. And we spent a lot of time together. So it was kind of really cool to hear that. And I kind of got a little goosebumpy and emotional and had to wrap it up. But anyway, thanks everybody for listening. And I hope you enjoy this episode with my brother. Thanks. See ya. Welcome to Angel Road Outdoors, the podcast. I'm the host, Brett, and we have a special in-studio guest today, the man who has many voices, the man of many characters, the man of many pants.
The best of guests.
The Big Gulp Cowboy.
I do, yes. I don't agree with the size of the mouth hole. Well, what is a big gulp? Is still a straw.
No,
straw?
The Big Gulp
straw.
Is... the Big Gulp is the cup.
Yeah, okay.
You are a Big Gulp Cowboy. I'm a Big Gulp Cowboy, but I have coffee stirrer ankles. I roll my ankles all the time. You have big meaty ankles.
Yeah, you've got it's so you got the extra inch up in length and tallness, and I did unfortunately get the extra few inches in girth.
Yeah,
but that allows for my ankles are not coffee.
They're very
ankles.
strong.
They are. I wouldn't say they're strong. I definitely have a. What's it called? Not a
you have a pronate?
I have definitely overpronated anklets.
Yeah. This is the second podcast. This is only the 4th podcast. The second one where feet were discussed.
Well, to be fair, I think feet correlate with hunting.
Sure. Well,
big time.
I talked about how I had to be comfortable in order to stay in the stand. And Brian Lefevre, guest on episode number 3 or 2, I can't remember, 2, said that it 3 said that it needed to be this. We are Michigan's #1 foot podcast, and I agree with that.
I also think that Brian Lefevre has a foot fetish.
He does. So does Mike Moore of the Wheelbarrow Full of Dicks podcast. Sorry, we're getting off track. That's
going to happen.
We are falling into our old ways.
It just became hot butter.
This is my brother Adam. Uncle Adam is here in studio on a Friday, and we're going to record episode 4. Sorry for the delay. Anybody that wanted it to be out on Tuesday, tough titties. But Adam's here. We've been trying to do this for a couple weeks now. He's been a little bit under the weather, but he's fine now.
Or over.
Yeah.
What is there music playing?
No.
Oh. Do we have to do an intro, or were you just jumping right into the shit?
That was it. So okay. I introduced you. This is my brother, Uncle Adam. He is 1/4 of Angel Road. I say 1/4, but we had one guy disappear last year.
I am a large quarter.
Maybe 1/3.
If you will.
Yeah, you're a generous
quarter.
I'm
a plus-size quarter of Angel
generous
Road.
Quarter.
And mentally probably the most disturbed quarter of Angel Road. I've been very frustrated listening to this podcast.
Oh boy. Get right into it.
Well, what do you want me to say?
No, it's fine.
I've wanted to come do this earlier on, and I kept texting Brett, my ears got plugged from this whatever cold I had going on. And I'm like, my ears are still plugged. You're like, well, let's not do it. But then you saw me and you're like, okay, you're not as deathly as I thought you were.
My concern with it was that Adam would just be going through the motions on here and not get really his real personality for people to hear. And so now that I saw him last night and realized he's fine, he can be here.
Well, and I'm not sure, for those of you that have ever had anybody talk about you when you can't have input, it's very frustrating. So listening to the podcast, this one in particular, and things being said that involve you, and you're like, that's not true, that's not right.
Yeah, but I wasn't saying anything like I wasn't judging you.
Are we allowed to use language that's not right? Okay.
Yes, this is explicit.
Who says what's not?
NSFW.
Yes. Okay. What's that mean?
The National Sailors Federation for Women.
Okay. All right. So we're going to do a National Sailors Federation for Women.
Yeah. This podcast is definitely that.
So I was getting frustrated, and not in a bad way, not at you.
Oh, thank God.
But at the fact that nobody really knows what I went through hunting this year versus the year before, and how I feel as a human being, and how my feet feel when I walk through the woods, and how I For instance, you guys were speaking about me wanting. So if I want to go to Kansas with you this year, my only request was that it's not that second week in November, because I think it was the second weekend in November this season, that it was very cool to see down at Angel Road.
Yeah, I think it was right before the gun opener.
It was rut-tastic.
It was.
I had my bow, so
Yeah.
it was not gun.
Right.
Because there was some stuff going on just out of bow reach. And if I would have had a gun, it would have been different.
Would it have been different?
Well, I would have shot at some things.
In your defense, I did make a statement that I felt like you made some bad decisions this year, and you were not here to defend yourself. And
no, but I don't disagree with you.
Okay, fine. Okay, well, we'll get into that later. And it will also be, if I can ever get into it, in your
pants
November video that I need to edit and put together with a 30-minute car interview that Adam recorded in my driveway.
I don't know if I like the shirt I'm wearing in that either.
You looked
I look sick.
You look like
decided.
You sell vacuums.
I also sometimes wonder if I have some sort of cancer.
You did. That's 2 days in a row you said you had cancer.
I was looking at every time I still have that video, and when I scroll through photos or videos and I hit that one, I'm like, ooh, you look sick.
Yeah, but I mean,
winter makes Adam look sick.
Okay, I mean, I can edit the color in the video.
Can you make it look tan?
I can make you look a
take
little
the dark
more tan.
circles under my eyes.
I can try.
Too many car seats.
So we're gonna have a general conversation, but I do want you to take a little bit of time in the very beginning here and just introduce yourself and tell us how long you've been hunting and some of your experience so far.
Well, we already know that my name is Adam David Postal. I was born April 26, 1984.
What's your social security number?
I will not provide my social security number. The funny thing is I won't give it to fucking anybody. Even when they need it, I'm like, no. You got anything
Figure
else?
it out.
I have been... First of all, I'm pretty sure everybody's aware that I did not think that I could ever hunt more than small birds, which I only did a couple times, but it was doable for me because it was just constant movement. You just walk through the woods and try and kick up a bird and shoot it, which I was not very successful with. Because I'm an overthinker, which we'll get into all of this throughout the life of however many times I'm on here. So I didn't think I could hunt anything larger than a small bird, as in like a woodcock, if you will.
I will.
And then you had talked me into trying it. You were like, and I'm not going to get too deep into this, but you were like, get a crossbow. They're on sale. Give it a whirl. So I did. And I started probably, I would say, after the rut that year. So probably end of November that first year when you guys just kind of dropped me off in the dark in the middle of the woods and I got lost looking for your tent in the swamp.
Are you sure that so your first year you didn't shoot a deer?
I thought I shot a decent doe until I quickly found out that it was a Bambi.
So then that was October because you had that in the back of your truck for Halloween.
You're correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
so
everyone
I did
made fun
start
of you
earlier. Yeah.
But you started after the season started. I will say agree with that.
Yes, and I don't think I hunted that much that year.
No.
So I would say my length of hunting seasons has been 2 full and 1/2.
I would agree with that. So that was 19 or 20.
What is it now?
It's 23.
So, but I haven't hunted in 23. So 22, 21, 20.
Yeah, so it was half of 20, all of 21, all of 22.
Sure.
Yeah, I sometimes forget what year it is and how long I've been hunting and how long I've been back in Michigan, and I forget sometimes.
Yeah. So not a lot. I'm definitely a
You're a beginner. You're a beginner.
Very much a beginner. I feel like I went hard into learning.
You did.
That makes sense.
I
went deep and
3
hard.
knuckles deep.
Yeah. If not all like palm deep.
Correct. Yeah.
Or even wrist.
Yeah. Right.
I've tried.
Mm-hmm.
I've tried, which was done very purposely because, but I just think that's how I am as a human.
Yeah.
If I like something.
Yep.
If I don't like it, fuck off. But I ended up trying it, loving it. That first half a year, I would say, was not about shooting anything, because when I look back to things that happened all around me, it was more just experiencing what it actually is to sit in the woods and see things happen around you. And to me, I only sat in the tent.
And I was going to say, to be clear, Adam, that first half a season, so half of 20 he hunted, he only sat on the ground in whatever tent was available. That's it.
And I remember
with a crossbow.
There's so many deer walking around me and having no idea what the fuck to do. Like, do I shoot that one?
Why?
No, I didn't know. Like,
didn't know what?
I think I had to go through a mental process of realizing that you see enough deer to where you learn what the size of a deer is.
The size and the age.
You
right.
shoot one that you think is okay and realize it's not necessarily a Bambi because it didn't have spots, but then you're like, oh, it was a fawn. And then you're like, oh, once everybody else sees it, you're like, I remember Nate specifically saying when we found her, started tracking her, he was like, he turned and looked, he goes, oh, you shot a Bambi.
Yeah.
And I'm like, fuck. Because to me, I was super excited. But now so this is one moment of what I would have learned from that. I was done hunting. That was like that sit was over. And I was getting everything ready to get out of the tent. And I'm pretty sure I even unzipped the tent before that, peed, got back in to get my stuff, and then looked out the window, and 15 yards away was a doe staring at me and only getting closer. Knowing now that already tells me that deer is too young to shoot.
Too stupid.
Yeah. So at that point, I got it in my scope, and I'm like, oh, she's huge. Well, everything's huge in a scope. So I got her. And in fact, I would say I don't even get that deer, because not only that did I didn't get her. We had to track her. She was bouncing off here and there, and then you had to come in from an opposite side and put her down.
I mean, I did finish her.
You did finish her off.
Yeah.
So what a wacky Kanaki. But anyways, that first year was more just sitting. I realized I think I had at one point a massive buck around me at last light. Had no idea. I would have never shot because I didn't know if I could. I didn't know how to look at I never had the graph of shooting times saved and studied all that stuff. I was more just sitting there, which is now a spot on the property we can no longer sit. It was the swamp.
Yeah. I mean, we could. We just don't put enough effort into it.
I don't know if we could you think we could get a tent?
No, I would hang another stand. We hung a stand that next year, and a tree fell in a storm and fell down the side of the tree that the stand was in and just raked it down and just crushed it. So we just abandoned that stand. Mm-hmm. We could hang another stand back there. We just don't. So anyway, you were saying the first half a year you realize. So in previous years, Adam would tell me, I don't understand how you can sit in the woods still and quiet for such a long time. Those were his exact words. I don't want to do it. I can't imagine sitting still and quiet for that long. And so you finally try it. And what are your thoughts on that?
I grew up in the woods. We both grew up in the woods.
Yeah.
Not hunting, but just there was woods behind mom and dad's house, and we were back there all day, every day.
Yep.
Without really parental.
We were one of the last generations to do that, to live like
just
that.
Just ran back there all day long, played around, fucked around, who knows?
Yep.
I think so. I naturally have a love to just be in the woods. So just sitting out there, I thought it was awesome. I thought it was cool to see. I remember having turkey walk around me, deer walk around me, be a part of everything, get out there in the dark, get lost. I loved it all. And then it still felt, so even though I would say that doe wouldn't be my most successful deer ever, there was a large part of it that was, because it showed me the feeling. It showed me sort of how you go through that process of getting everything ready, focusing, shooting, killing, tracking. It was a very big learning experience for me to sort of fail with that. So I don't, as much as it was not a doe I would typically like to shoot, I did learn a lot from that experience. And then I think that actually helped me moving forward want more.
I would agree with that.
So then what else do you want to know? Do you
Oh no, that's good. It was important to me for people to hear that you are still technically a very new hunter. There's still a lot of things you are learning and asking, but you're asking the right questions and you're going off instinct and you're reading sign and you're doing the right things.
So I would say if we bump forward to the first full year, the full season that I hunted, it was still very beginner to the point where I still don't have like my stands out there.
That's fine.
We had enough stands. Like the guys already had enough stands up that we didn't need to add more. But I didn't think about that stuff. I wasn't even looking for, like, when you guys would change a tree stand, I would just kind of go walk around the woods and look around. I wasn't paying attention to all of the sort of structural details that went into hunting, and I wasn't really looking at runs and rubs, and I was more just cruising through the woods and getting a feeling for all of that.
And you had, but in your defense, you had zero historical data for why we were doing what we were doing based on what we saw last year or the year before that or the last 5 years in a row. Fine. It wasn't like you needed to. You listened and you watched and you understood why we were doing what we were doing, but you had no reason for providing input because you didn't have any historical data to provide, and that's fine.
It was more like, I wouldn't say it being thrown to the wolves is a bad thing. It was just like, I'm going to take you down there. Here you go. Ask questions if you want to, but otherwise, if you like it, start to learn it yourself.
Yeah, but also get your thick ass down there and help us hang some tree stands and do some of this sweat equity, cut some trees with us, clear some trails, introduce yourself to Mary, hang some trees, get up there, figure out why, how to do it. And just if you're going to use it, help. And you were happy. You were always happy to do so. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Move trail cameras with us. But like, I think I can't remember. So the first full season, 2021 for you, was crossbow again and on the ground, right?
Correct. I had not, my first full season was still, I did not get into compound bow until this year you passed down the one because you had to switch eyes.
Right. And hands. So 2021 is all crossbow and on the ground.
and I believe, did I start sitting in trees in that year at all?
No, maybe the climber. So maybe like 5 foot off the ground, but that's it.
The climber for sure, but that doesn't. I wouldn't count that. I was wondering if my first sit was skyscraper, and I don't remember what year that was. I don't think it was this year. I think I did try it last year.
Maybe the end of 21.
Maybe. But either way, I was still only picking spots on the ground and spots that you guys weren't hunting already.
Right.
That was sort of the thing, is where you sitting, and I would just base it off of what was left.
Yeah.
I wasn't overthinking.
No, Adam was really just taking the scraps. It was like, wherever nobody's going to sit, I'll just go there. And I think he was of the mindset, and correct me if I'm wrong, of just still learning.
Yes.
Yeah. But you had a bonerific season, if I'm not mistaken.
I had a great first season. Now, I will say I was still learning, and I know I was, because I look back to, I didn't get a doe, but I had several chances to.
Yeah.
And I was still struggling with sort of learning, to me, what the size.
Sure.
Because I think that first one sort of scarred me a little bit.
And our razzing didn't help. Yeah.
So I was, that whole year, I got 2 good bucks, and then
He didn't just get 2 good bucks. The second weekend of bow season, he shot the biggest buck on the property.
Which I would say, so, I mean, you can get into as many details as you want with it, but my overall look back on it is, does that make sense what I just said?
Yes.
I didn't overthink at all the first season, and then the second, this season, I overthought too much. I was way overthinking. So what I go through now is I'm looking back at, like, how do I find that fine line of looking at the first season where I just fucking got lucky. I mean, I had 3 or 4 or maybe even 5 big deer walking in front of me that day. I'm pretty sure they were all bucks.
Mm-hmm.
I know 3 came from my left, and then Head said 1 came from the pines into that same scrape.
Mm-hmm.
And I just happened to pick Buster through the fog because he looked the biggest.
You say lucky, But you sat based on information that we provided you in a historically productive spot where all the big bucks hit this scrape. This scrape produces every year. Every buck on the property hits the scrape at some point, sometimes multiple times a day. They daylight here. It's just a insane transition area. So you chose to sit over this scrape. Nobody else
Which
did.
we call the walnuts.
It's this walnut scrape. You chose that. Nobody else chose to sit there.
Right.
And you practiced your little dick off all summer long to be consistently accurate with your crossbow, period. So you call it lucky. You made a decision to sit there and you practice and made a great shot and you killed a great buck.
Right.
So call it luck if you want. I call it that's what hunting is. Period.
Right.
Now, I agree with you that there is a great learning curve for judging size on the hoof, and then it gets even harder when you're up in a tree. When you're on the ground, and there are two deer standing side by side, you can tell which one's the mom and which one's the baby.
Right.
Especially in the early season. Then when you elevate yourself and you're looking down at their back, you can't judge their height.
But even now, you know how they act.
Sure.
I can tell how a mom is acting versus how, like, for instance, one of the does this season, I had several run at me. It must have been from a car because I was facing the road back at Three Tree, and nothing had happened the whole time. And then all of a sudden it was like, shit hitting the fan, and I had all these deer running in every direction, and you could tell that one very specifically was the mom.
Yeah.
So it was easy to say out of these 5 or 6 deer that just ran in every direction that I need to focus on her. But I will still say, even this year, after I would shoot them and watch them like fuck around and die, I would still question myself and be like, holy shit, did I just shoot another
Bambi?
Like, for a moment, she looked small. But then you go down and you walk up on that bitch and you're like, dang, baby.
Yeah.
You look so fly.
Yeah. And then there are still bigger does out there. And
right.
I have some pictures this year in Clarkston. There has got to be some 150, 160 pound does here in Clarkston because no one shoots does around here. They just shoot every buck. And I was trying to get on doe here. Anyway, sorry, I digress. There's some big does. We shot, our does were all 100-pound does dressed.
This year?
Yeah.
Oh, they were right around 103.
Yeah, so right around 100 pounds.
Right? Yeah.
Dressed. And that's a good doe. I mean, it's still a
seen
young
them
doe.
lay in the back of my truck.
Yeah.
They take up the whole back.
But there are some big does out there. Anyway, so 2021, second week of the season, you shoot the biggest buck on the property. You're riding a
That's
tremendous
not also
high.
not very true.
What?
There was a bigger buck on the property.
There was?
I mean, Girth Brooks was still around.
He was. We did know where
Girth
he was.
was there. He was the mystical beast of the property that
we hadn't seen him in a long time. So Girth Brooks is an anomaly. I don't know if he's dead. My hope says he just disappeared this season. I have a picture of Girth Brooks the last weekend of September in the morning. The problem is he's right by the main road, and then nothing for the rest of the year. So there's a chance, the property changed this year. There's a chance he went somewhere else, and maybe he'll show back up this summer. He has always summered, and he has always summered on our property, and hopefully he returns, but we'll see. Anyway, Adam shot the second biggest buck on the property. I would say
probably, the biggest one that was
consistently
sort of, and I think you even said he was kind of bullying.
He was the bully.
And he had that little tippy nub he broke off of
after he lost his velvet.
Yeah, so we called him Buster. But I really enjoyed him. He was thick daddy. He was fun. That was a fun those are all the little moments that sort of sparked the craving for more.
Right. Absolutely.
And you fall in love with the feeling of just the sort of the dopamine rush of
you're constantly chasing that.
Yeah, it's like different than masturbating. It's
very different.
It's killing something to eat, and it is
fundamentally different than masturbating.
Yeah, very much so.
I mean,
and physically. I mean,
as a whole is totally different than masturbating.
Yeah, I would say you're right.
Completely different. Not
but
even
you
in
still
the same
get
neighborhood.
that. You still get a rush from it.
Okay, now I know what you're talking about.
Not the band. So, anyways, I would say it was a good season for me. It was not a lot of thinking, just a lot of doing.
Yeah. That was when Adam really started to make it clear to me that he hunted by gut. He made decisions based on what his gut told him. We would be sitting in the trailer in the morning going, oh, there was a buck here. The wind's doing this. I wonder what this is going to be like.
So I would
night.
still be laying in bed.
And he'd be like, these guys are fucking
with
idiots.
my eyes closed, listening to you on one side of me and head on the other side, not in the same bed.
Right.
but at the opposite ends of the camper, looking at the photos from overnight and discussing things, and I just was still sleeping, getting up, and not really focused on that. So yes, you're right. I didn't, and I'm comparing everything to this season.
Yeah.
So I started to do that more this season and didn't have the luck that I did.
Right. But in 2021, you still, I mean, like, you pretty much hunted by gut all season. Like, just feel like what feels good. This is, and he would say consistently, I'll know when I get to the property where I'm going to sit. Because that's our biggest joke with everybody is first thing in the morning, the alarm goes off at 4:30. Where you hit Postal, where are you sitting today? Adam, where are you going to sit? Head, where are you sitting today? And I mean, that's our big joke because nobody knows. We can't make up our damn mind. So anyway, Adam would say, I'll know when I get there. And so that was very productive for you all season. Mm-hmm. So how did the rest of 21 go for you?
I don't remember. For some reason, I'm drawing a blank on like a lot. So 2021 is when I fell in love with the climber. I fell in love with the middle of the property a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because I had bucks walk into me there.
That's true.
Missed one. I had an opportunity to shoot one 20 yards out from the climber, which the climber is a broken down climber that is 5 feet off the ground.
It's a climber that I took out one year. And when I got to where I wanted to be in this tree or in this area where I got to the tree I wanted to be, I climbed up 20 feet. I went to hang my backpack on the tree, and when the backpack fell out of the tree, fell down to the ground and landed on my bow and fucked my bow up. And so I climbed back down on my climber and angrily got out and angrily hunted the rest of the season to no avail, and then never moved the climber. I just left it there.
And no wonder you never sat back there.
I never sat there again.
Scarred from that area.
And so anyway, the climber's just been in that area. And so then later on, I was like, why don't we just get the climber positioned like a ground blind and build sort of this stick nest around you. So and then you can hunt from the ground right there.
Yeah.
The ground when you're still elevated a little bit. And it just stayed in that tree. It's been in that tree for 5 years.
Yes. And
I
would crawl my fat ass up in there. It was just high enough to get my knee up to somehow pull myself up in there, but also just high enough to where it hurt. Yeah. But I started to realize that people weren't hunting the middle of the property. It's a large property, and the middle there wasn't cameras. People weren't hunting it. So I started to want to sit in that climber and see what I just wanted to see what happened. I didn't have intel or anything. And I can't remember the time of the year whatever it was, but I all of a sudden I had deer walking right into me. I mean, I had Fuzzy Navel walk right into me with his one
Fuzzy Navel.
He's the deer that's still on the property that has one. He only had one set of antlers, and he was 4 on one side.
Yeah, I haven't seen him in a while. I don't know where he's at.
He was the first buck that walked right into me within. I mean, I'm talking like within 10 yards, and had no clue I was there.
Yeah,
and I'm like, either something's wrong with him, or this isn't that bad of a stand being only 5 feet from the ground.
He's also the buck that I walked up and was standing face to face with 10 yards away, and he was just looking at me. Mm-hmm. And then he didn't run away. He just literally walked out of my life. He was only a 8-point at that time. He had one side, and he didn't look good. And I made the assessment that he had been hit by a car, and he's been a little fucked up ever since.
Yeah, so he was back this year with he did grow the other side, but it was like one long sword.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome.
What, 4 or 5 on the other side?
4 or 5 on the other side.
I love him. He's big.
Yeah.
I actually had an opportunity to shoot him this year, and I fucked it up. And he stared at me, and we had a moment. And I feel like he's still living inside of my soul, but that totally explains my season. So I would say 21 was still, you kind of steered me towards the last. I never ended up getting another deer until I would say it was almost Christmas. It was December 23rd. We went down there. I sat on the ground in the middle of like 5 trees. and ended up having another buck, still following a doe, come into sight, and I got him. And he was he was an 8. I think you said 7 earlier, but
he had some questionably
he had some
measurable
smaller,
points.
Yeah. But I don't know how you look at that. But you could have gotten a ring on it, put a ring on it, Beyonce. Either way, he had a nice body. Like, I have a picture of him and Buster hanging up next to each other. So he was a healthy babe.
Yeah.
So I was happy with that.
So Adam bucks out his first full deer season.
Yeah. So I knew I was hooked.
Hooked for Rizzle Dizzle. So did you mention I'm sorry, I was looking for the photo for the date. Did you mention that in the climber, that buck that you had thought about too long and went to Nate?
No. So, not only did I have Goofy Pants walk into me there, but I had the other buck come in, and he was more like 20 yards out. And there's a lot of weird shit in the middle right there. So there's certain lanes to shoot. And he came in and went down around, walking right at me, that same angle they were all walking. And he circled around some down tree leaf branches shit that had fallen. And then he got into sight, and I had him in my scope and my finger on the trigger, and was like a tit hair away from pulling it, and saw his asshole and him leaping away. So I just waited too long. And I was going through a mental process in my head of I was taking way too much time counting points, because we have a gentleman's rule down there of 8 or more.
8 or better, or 3 or older.
Yeah. Or it was a weight, 200.
No, 8 or better in points, or 3 years or older in age.
Yeah. But being my first year, I was really focused on making sure it wasn't a 6 or a 7, and trying to.
Because what's the punishment?
The punishment is, if you shoot a 6, I would owe each other person 2 nights at the bar, because that's 8. It's 2 more points to get to an 8.
It's a full night at the bar, including food, on your tab for every point under 8 that you shoot.
Correct.
So
that was a much better explanation than what I gave.
Adam would owe the other 3 of us
It'd be
a full night at the bar twice if he shot a 6. And so he's really concerned with, counting points, and it's costing him valuable seconds.
It wasn't even that so much as there's a disappointment in knowing I shot something. I had already shot a doe that was way too young, and I was did not like the feeling. So there is a disappointment I feel in shooting something that's younger than what I want it to be.
And so this deer is in front of you, and I had to look up the picture, because
I think it was November 8th.
It was November 7th.
7th, okay.
Yeah. In the afternoon.
It was earlier.
It was 4 o'clock.
4 o'clock, yeah. You actually shot a doe this exact same sit.
I did. You're right.
Yeah. And so he took off from the middle of the property up on an angle towards what I call the honey hole, which is where I think the boys take the girls to make love. He went that way, and then on the other side of the honey hole, through some pines, is the walnuts, and I knew Nate was sitting in the walnuts, so I texted Nate and said, I'm not sure if it's been too long, but you've got a buck, I think, possibly heading your way. And his response within like a minute or something was, got him. So he was a good 8, I think.
Yeah, he was a nice 8.
So he ran right into the walnuts, and Nate got him. And then and you had shot a doe that night. But that was, yes, failure, but also a learning point.
That wasn't a failure.
It was, so for me, it was for me, I was overthinking points.
Here's the worst thing that could have happened if Nate didn't shoot that deer. The worst thing that could have happened is that deer lives to see another day.
Right.
It wasn't a failure.
Well, for me, it was too much time. I took too much time to think about it, which I remember Nate saying, well, that's what we call buck fever.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking in my head, I'm like, I don't know if I can, I agree with that idea. But for me, it was just, I was taking too much time looking at points. And for anybody that doesn't know this, I wear opticals while I'm hunting. Those are the glasses. So I don't see good.
Or speak
good. Even through the scope, so then you get your scope up and you're looking and you're watching a deer walk and trying to count, where's the other brow tine, or what was I going to call them? Eye swords?
Eye swords, yeah. Jeffrey Eptines is what you called them.
That was your deer this year because he had beautiful tines.
You were looking at my Euro mount and you're like, look at his Eptines.
Yeah, because I remember I was trying to think of names for your buck, and I was like, how about Jeffrey Eptine?
I forgot about that.
Your buck had beautiful brow tines.
Yeah.
So anyways, yeah, that was, I'll take an assist on that buck.
There you go. Nice. Yeah, you did pass it real nice.
Yeah. I don't know. It could have been too late, and Nate would have seen him anyways. But,
so that's a great full season.
Yes. And I did say I got the buck, Richard Nubbins, because he had the 2 Nubbins to make him an 8.
Yeah.
At the end of the season. So yes, I had a very good season, in 21.
And so so you had a questionable half a year in 20, but you enjoyed yourself, but it caused you to be overly concerned with the size. But it's, again, you're still your first season. And some of the things that you just said will lead into a discussion we'll have in a little bit. But there are a group of people who say that's a problem, that this whole counting points and then a deer walks out of your life forever, and then you're like, well, fuck, I just missed my chance because I was being an idiot.
Okay.
And so then these people say, shoot what gets you excited.
Correct.
And you did that at the end of the year. You said, I really thought the deer that came in on December 23rd that I ended up shooting, I thought that's a good deer. I'm excited. I'm shooting him.
So, and I'll tell you, my thought process when I saw him was to eliminate the amount of time I think about it, see his body, make a decision. I saw antlers, saw his body, and I said, I'm shooting him.
Right.
So that's how that worked out. There's also a group of people that one day said that fuck was a bad word. So I'm not going to agree with everybody because fuck is just like saying stapler to me. Like, if you want to get philosophical here, who decides what is what, Everybody's got an opinion, and I'm realizing I'm watching hunting as a newbie and realizing that everybody has an opinion, and there's like a stereotype. There's like people over here. There's people over here, and I'm just I'm thinking and processing the way I feel about everything.
That's all that matters.
Yeah. So I am going to listen. But I'm also going to I'm trying not to give a fuck what everybody else says.
Sure.
There's too many things. It's like trying to buy honey at the store. There's 10 different kinds of honey or jelly or peanut butter. And I just need the one that's best for me.
So I think it's good to listen to what other people have to say. And then I think it's really good to find the information within those conversations that resonates the most with you so that you enjoy your hunting experience the most. Mm-hmm. You're not going to find that you agree with everybody all the time.
Right.
You're also not going to find that you disagree with everybody all the time. You're going to find little nuggets of joy in something that somebody says all over the place. Mm-hmm. And then how do you piece that together so that you are the most ethical and you have the most ethical and the most enjoyable hunting experience. And sometimes that's going to mean you don't shoot anything.
Right.
Or you don't. I think we'll always be able to shoot does.
So that's one of the things I went through this year. I'm not worried about does. This year for me was really good with doe. And in fact, I could have had more.
Sure.
But during the rut, I took the play of not shooting females.
Yeah.
I will say that I don't remember what I was going to say. Do you?
So what we were talking about was, how you looked at the deer and how you thought about
so this
things.
Year, yes, I remember now.
So moving into 2022, Adam has decided he is now going to hunt with a compound. Because like he said, I injured my eye. I had to go become a lefty. I had a right-handed bow that I was going to sell, but I've been trying to get Adam to shoot a compound bow from an elevated position, and he took me up on the offer, and he took the bow, and he practiced all GD summer long, and he became competent, and he became efficient and effective, and he decided he was going to hunt with a compound. And I don't know, did you hunt with a crossbow at all?
One time.
Oh.
This year I went and I wanted to sit on the ground.
Okay.
And I wanted to sit in a position in which I knew that pulling a compound was not
It was the end of the season, and I wasn't there.
We're not there, yes. Yep. And it was a horrible experience.
Yeah.
I had a lot of those this year. So yes, I had one sit on the ground with crossbow. I went through a process over the end of last year and the summer to where, and this is coming from a newbie. I thought I'm like, oh, it's difficult to hunt and crossbow's where it's at. And then I shot a compound bow and I'm like, oh, that's way fucking harder. So I went through a process of like, holy shit. There's a lot of judging going on between hunters on using a crossbow and using a compound bow. And I understood it all. I still don't really give a shit. I just know for me, I felt that hunting became hunting when it became more difficult for me, which was switching from a crossbow to a compound bow.
And go ahead.
Which is why I started to practice heavily over the summer, is because I could see that shooting a compound bow was not like shooting a crossbow.
No, not even close. But correct me if I'm wrong, I think you also realized that you were super limited to where you could hunt with a crossbow.
With a crossbow?
Because you weren't going up in trees. You were just
correct
on the ground all the time. And you're like, man, this is not, I'm really limited to where I go. Yes, you bucked out in 2021, but you were super limited. And what are the chances that's going to happen again? So you realize I got to get up in a tree.
Right.
And I got, and
that was another goal of mine was to get up in a tree.
Yeah.
So I had to get a harness and all that stuff. And then chose to sit in the tallest tree stand we have out there my first time in the dark in the morning. And then realized it was skyscrapers, what, two trees?
It's two for sure.
That are sort of coming up together. And the one I was putting my hand on, I realized was moving different from the one my body was on. And I had no idea what was happening at 5 a.m. And I'm like, holy shit, I didn't expect this. But then realized how much I enjoyed the being able to see what I could see from a tree. But then it opened up so getting further into hunting has opened up doors on a lot more doors to just go into. So being in a tree, I started to get my own feelings about where I like my bow to be hanging, where I need to put a camera that's comfortable for me, and how I like to either sit or stand. I don't like to sit.
That's something that we haven't even touched on yet.
What?
That Adam not only gets into hunting, but he gets into hunting right as I decided that we're going to start an outdoor channel where we're going to record our hunts.
Oh, yeah.
So not only does he have to learn how to hunt, he has to learn how to hunt and self-film.
Yeah, so and actually this year, sorry if that's a loud tinging and tanging and banging.
Who cares?
This year, I had some points in my anger where I was like, I'm never fucking using a camera again. Or I'm going to pay somebody to come with me and sit in this fucking tree.
If you ever get rich, you can do that.
But I actually fucked up on Darius Rucker. What do I call him?
I have no idea what you're
fucked up
talking
head.
Thorny Daniels.
Thorny Daniels, yes. I fucked up on him because of camera.
Yeah, that's true.
Camera and looking at my phone.
There are a lot of people I have heard on podcasts say, I will not shoot a buck if I can't get it on film.
So, yeah. So there's a processing that went on this year that was very overwhelming for me, where I was frustrated with things that weren't going well, missing bucks that were coming into my hunting zone where I could have a shot. And what else? Like just overthinking and then trying to develop a plan on what I just need to come to terms with on making this work.
Okay, again, correct me if I'm wrong. You were chasing 21. You were trying to recreate your incredibly unusually successful 2021,
correct,
where you shot 2 good bucks in your first full season of hunting ever. You were trying to recreate that, and that is unreasonable.
Well, and I remember Head saying to me after I shot Buster, the first buck, you may not see another deer like this for 10 years.
Yeah.
He's like, it took me 5 years to get my first
of that
buck.
quality. Yeah. You'll see another buck, but of that quality.
I saw tons of bucks this year.
Tons.
A lot of them were out of reach. I fucked up on shots. And then I was getting to the point where I was like ready to fucking just shoot anything. Like, I was looking at squirrels and just thinking, oh, I'd love to just fucking put an arrow in them.
Sure. Absolutely.
You just get to where you want to shoot any. So, and it's just frustration. And then I was I was overthinking where I'm going to sit and the travel of the deer and the runs and the scrapes and the, I wasn't happy with where stands were and where tents were.
And camera arms and bow hangers. And
Yeah.
and that's another thing is I would climb up in these stands because Uncle Head lives up in Traverse City, and so realistically he doesn't come down as much as we do to go down there. Nate disappeared, so it was really Adam and I setting up the property this year. Head did come down, but for the most part it was Adam and I down there. And so if I climb up there, I'm sometimes thinking about everybody, but as a lefty, I also have to think, well, if I were to grab my bow, what side do I want the bow hanger on? What side do I want the gear hanger on? And what side do I want the hook on? And all this other things that from a righty's perspective may be a little off. And so finding a neutral place is what we really need to focus on this year, is a neutral location for bow hangers and bag hooks and so on and so forth, so that you don't find yourself annoyed with how I set up a tree being a lefty.
Well, and it's just so being up in a tree down there, I feel like the deer are so skittish that, unless it's during the rut, I can hardly move.
Yeah.
So I started to realize I wanted things. I like to stand up in the tree. So I only really sit down if I need to just get off my feet for a minute.
Mm-hmm. Give those baby cows a break.
Give the baby cows a break. So most of the time I'm standing up. So I like things to be where I can hardly just bend my elbows and get to my camera and not have, which I was using a phone this year. I've realized that using my iPhone is just the easiest. Less clicks, less zoomies, less doomies. So anyways, how can I do that without moving my arms all over the place and then having to move my arm up to get my bow off of the bow hanger? Because I was finding myself in these positions with even the doe fucking staring at me. And then you're frozen. And then in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I got to get the camera on that doe before I get my bow and then pull back. Because now it's not a crossbow. I can't just lift it up and fire. I've got to pull back. And I remember my second doe, I had the camera, I couldn't get it in the right angle, and then I pulled back, and my bow stretched out in my arms and hit the bow hanger, and I'm like, holy shit, I can't believe she hasn't moved. And so I had to release, move the bow hanger, redraw, and then got her. But I'm at this year, that sums up this year to me. Every single thing I was doing had 10 things involved in it.
And that hunt is available on our YouTube channel, Angel Road Outdoors. Adam's October archery recap. That is his second deer that he shoots for the season. And
you can watch her die, but you can't watch her get shot.
You can watch him. You can hear him draw back and hit the bow hanger. You can see him visibly let off. You can see him move. You can hear him move the bow hanger. You can see him redraw, shoot her, and then watch her die right in front of the camera. She died.
So that was also, I will touch on that. That was the first time I had a deer run. She was 25 yards away from me. She turned and ran back directly to run in front of me and died straight down.
Right in front of me.
Right in front of me. She took her dive. I'm finding that I'm very good at hitting the jugular.
You're a killer.
I'm pretty sure I hit Buster's jugular. I hit Buster, that first big buck, more in his neck. I think I got his jugular, and then it turned inside and went through. Possibly could have gone through lung. Yeah. But it went through and came out his shoulder area.
He died so fast, I can't remember.
But he had that huge amount of blood foam leakage too.
And he also had that foam coming out, so that's lung. Anyway, it was great.
Yeah, so you can see her in that video. If you zoom in and slow down, there's a moment right before she takes her dive in front of me that the hole in her neck opens and a bunch of blood falls out of it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, holy shit, did you see that? So that was the first time I had to watch a deer animal die in front of me, and the baby, little baby sister Tina watching from back. So it was an interesting thing, because then little baby Tina hung around all night, and I finally had to get out of the tree.
It's interesting. You also did a whole bunch of videos this year called The Hunting Monologues, and you also named one of the does that was having sex with one of the bucks, Tina.
Did I really?
Yeah.
Oh, was that Carl and
My girl
Eugene's?
Tina. Yeah.
Oh, you're
Carl
right.
and Carl
Tina must
and
be yeah. Deborah's a big one for me too.
Tina and Deborah.
I'm still processing this year and how I want to do things differently.
Well, summarize it. Summarize your feelings about this year.
So this year, no bucks for Uncle. Oh no, well,
no bucks. Oh yeah, you did. You shot a buck.
I shot a buck. That was my 30-minute fucking video. Was me talking about. Yeah. It took me 3 days of tracking to eventually lose him for good and figure we'd have to come back.
We've never talked about this.
No.
Did you talk about how I shot at it?
No.
Okay.
I don't know how much you want me to talk about.
Oh, we can talk.
That.
I don't care.
Oh, okay.
So Adam shoots a deer with a gun while I'm out of town for work.
So let's. Do you want me to go through anything else?
I would quickly talk about this hunt
because I already shot at a buck earlier in the day.
Oh.
But we can just skim to.
So we're at 51 minutes, and
okay.
I don't want to go too far over.
Okay.
I'll tell you what. Let's just have you come back and talk about. We'll talk about your gun season in one whole episode.
Okay.
Because that's what it's
so
about.
we don't talk about the buck right
Let's
now.
not talk about your November buck. But I'd like you to summarize the 2022 season.
The 2020 what?
2022 season.
Yes.
What would if you had to pick one word to describe it?
Frustrating.
Perfect. That's exactly
Overdone.
what I would. That frustrating is exactly right.
Yeah, it was overdone and frustrated. I overdid every single thing I did. I overthought every thought. I overhunted. I overworked the property. I moved too many things. Had too many. We moved tents throughout the season, and I don't ever want to do that again. I don't agree with it, and that's something you're fine with. I don't agree with it. I don't ever want to hunt from the ground again unless I take the time to set up a proper burial ground. I'm just kidding, not a burial ground. I sat on the ground this year a few times and failed miserably. Yes, I had success last year with the one. It's not going to happen again. And I got busted, frozen nut hand, crazy on the ground every single time. Like those deer.
That was frozen nut hand crazy. For anybody that missed it,
I just feel like we have to be smarter about hunting that property as opposed to just going out there and doing whatever the fuck we want.
So we haven't talked about this, but I've made some decisions this year.
Mm-hmm.
I am not 100% sure that I'm going to take the camper down there and leave it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel obligated to go down there and hunt when it's there.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we overhunt the property. I feel like our access is fucked because we don't come in from different directions on different winds. We park and we lazily park and lazily get out of the truck and lazily go into the barn and change. And I think it's a problem.
So let me tell you about that one thing in particular.
But hold on.
Yeah.
I made a decision to not hunt the property some this year because I feel like we overhunted it. I'm on the fence about only looking at my trail camera photos through the summer, and then as soon as it's hunting season, removing the apps from my phone.
Okay.
I've also, I'm in the process of trying to find us additional properties to hunt down there to solve those. So those are some of the things that I've sort of decided I want to do differently this year. But go ahead. What were you going to say?
Well, even just pulling in. So I got specific about how I was pulling into the property this year because the deer were hanging out in the mornings before sunup. You know, this would be an hour and a half before sunup around the pig pen area, which is outlined in pine trees. And then the walnuts are on the other side. And it's just a dipsy-do of shit. But every time I'd pull in, they were all out in the field, all around the pig pen. So I started pulling in very quietly, very slowly, and turning my lights off so that my lights weren't shining. And then I would shut my door really quietly.
You realize that they can still see you.
Yes.
Lights on, lights off, they can see you.
But I felt like as quietly as I could be, and this may be part of me overthinking everything because I wasn't doing this the year before when I had better success. But I also am not sure that the field was different. It was CRP.
We never talked about that. So historically, for as long as I've been there, not for as long as we've been hunting down there, but for as long as I've been there, that front 40 or 30 or 40 acres has been CRP every single year. And this year they cut it and they planted beans. So this is the first year the front half of the property was soybeans. All the way from the house to the woods, soybeans.
Which is fine, but at a point in the season, they're gone.
Yeah, so to piggyback what Adam said, in the mornings, those deer weren't standing in the CRP eating. You would occasionally bump some that were bedding out there, but they weren't standing there feeding like this year they were. So you pull into the house, you pull behind the barn, and there's 20 deer standing in the beans eating.
Yeah.
Like, whoops.
Or this year they'd be like right around the edge of the pig pen, and I'm thinking, well, shit, I just busted all these. Here I am. Everybody's slamming their doors and going in and turning the light on in the barn and sliding that fucking sliding door open and making as much noise as we can. So I was hunting alone a lot, and I was being very quiet.
Yeah.
And almost not. I was getting out into stands and stuff without using lights. Just not using anything that would be too suspicious. My concern is that we're walking into the property on the main trail, and it's in the middle of the hunting. I know it's the north side of our property.
That's where they're all at, though.
But north of that is a property that is not hunted, where a lot of deer are coming from, and then our property is south of the main trail, right?
Yep, and they cross.
So we're walking down the fucking middle to get out to the property.
And not only that, if
not our property.
I think they're bedding on the north. They're watching us pull in like a bunch of assholes. They're watching us get out of our truck, and they're going, well, the fuckheads are here again, so we're not going over there. And then they move north, and they don't even move south.
But I'm saying if you were to draw a line around where we think all of the deer are coming from, it's the south of our property and then north of the property north of us.
Right.
So we walk essentially
right down
in the middle of all of that
Yes.
to get out to
Yes.
our hunting stands on our property.
Yes.
So I don't know.
So anyway,
there's a lot of stuff.
You summarized 2022 accurately as far as I can tell. And I could see it in the season. I could hear it in your words. I could feel it in the aura that you were giving off, that you were frustrated. And I can only tell you that it happens to everybody. It'll happen again. But again, listening to other people's stories and hunting. I found yesterday on my drive, I'm only listening to hunting podcasts right now, where historically I only listen to comedy podcasts. And I'm getting a lot of really great information, and I'm cherry picking things that I feel like resonate with me the most, taking that knowledge and then putting it into practice in your own hunting experience. You're putting it in your own hunting experience.
Jerome.
So that you enjoy what you're doing and your frustrations are limited.
So let me briefly graze with my hand up, Martin Luther King style.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what that means. You spoke about talking about the failures in hunting and not being, you're not opposed to that, where most people just show the success in hunting. In my mind, how I need to start approaching hunting is it is majority of the time going to be failures.
Yes.
And then every once in a while, be happy with the successes.
The problem is I don't want to call them, they're not all failures.
But here's the thing, because everybody thinks failure is bad, I'm not using...
If only this were a video podcast.
I'm not using failure as a bad word.
Like you were trying to start a fire and you were fanning the flames.
It's going to be learning experiences.
Yes, more learning experiences.
And then little bits of success.
To me, a failure is shooting over the deer's back. To me, a failure is shooting it in the ass.
Okay,
those are failures.
Which I did this year, and that's a learning. Like, why did I do that? And then now it's focusing on all of these things and having fun with those.
You were desperate. You were desperate to shoot a buck. That buck was out of your comfortable range, and you made a bad shot.
Right.
Right?
So learning experience or failure, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
That is hunting.
Yes.
And then every once in a while, I'm going to get my buck.
A learning experience would have been to not shoot that buck in the ass, but instead wait to see what it does. If it walks out of your life, it walks out of your life. The failure was shooting it in the ass.
So, well, here's the thing. What? You can shoot 2 bucks.
Yes, you can.
So if you're lucky, you have 2 successful hunts big time successful
You could
hunts.
shoot 10 does.
Correct. But like, let's focus on the way people think is the best hunt they have of the year is when they get their big buck.
Sure.
So let's say you have 1 or 2 of those a year.
Yeah.
What about the other 100 times? So I have to process the fact that I have to find joy in those other 100 times and be really happy when those 2 or 1 time happens.
Yeah. Yep. I agree. That is very astute.
I was pissed about the other 100 times and then never got my 1 or 2 times. So I was just pissed in general.
You were pissed the whole time.
Yeah.
Yes. You never found those little wins.
You become, what was the word you used? Deodorant.
Demoralized?
No. I was looking for fucking anything.
Desperate.
Desperate.
Yeah.
I felt very desperate.
You were desperate.
Time was running out. Then I started over hunting.
You were hunting a buck like a buck is hunting pussy during the rut.
Yeah.
Tongue out, like just bloodthirsty.
I can shoot 75 yards.
Yeah. Well, I made the same choice in Kansas. I was my last morning sit, or my second to last morning sit maybe, and I shot at 80 yards.
Mm-hmm.
I've taken 1 shot at 80 yards at a target in my life. That was retarded. Mm-hmm. And I did it because it was my last hit, and I was desperate. And my dumbass should have just made more of an effort to go back last fall.
Yeah.
But instead, I didn't hurt the deer. I missed it like an asshole. But the deer never knew what the noise in the fucking grass was. It just pranced off. But I did it too.
I did the same thing you did, and this is knowing that I was desperate. I looked at my scope.
Yeah.
Or my
rangefinder.
My needles.
Oh yeah, your
my
pin
pins.
sights. Yeah.
And I was practicing in my head being ready to take a shot that's double that.
So it's interesting, and I've heard someone say this, and I never thought about it, but the distance between your pins grows the further it goes out. So like you might look at 10, 20, 30, and they look to your eye like they're
similar.
The same distance apart. But then as you go from like 30 to 40 to 50 to 60 to 70 to 80, the space between them grows. So you can't just visibly go, well, if I just multiply
add another 3 pins in here,
it doesn't
that'll
work
be
that
another
way.
10, 20, 30.
It's more like adding 5 pins worth to get out. Anyway, desperate, frustrated, I get it. Now, that's your 2022 season. What are your goals for 2023?
My goals for 2023 are to basically just approach the property different. I want to hunt the property totally different than I did this year.
Explain.
Like you were saying, I want to think about other ways to access how I get in and out. I want to think about deer movement and wind, and if there are specific places I will never hunt. Like I may only ever want to hunt if the wind is blowing, if it's a north wind. Because in my opinion, a lot of things are only happening in a certain direction.
That's an interesting point because I was listening to somebody talk about the predominant wind. Mm-hmm. And I've never thought about our predominant wind down there. But I don't, like even right now, I couldn't tell you what our predominant wind is.
So the wind was telling me how I was going to hunt. Yeah. Instead of me looking at the wind and saying, I'm just not going to hunt because I don't like this wind. And that'll take me out of the woods from overdoing it.
So that leads me into my statement of I need to find more property with the opposite layout that we currently have. So our hunting area is it sets up on the west side of a property that runs east to west. So the length of the property, it's narrow north to south, it's long east to west. Mm-hmm. Our hunting woods is on the west side of that half side of that property. I want to find a property with hunting woods on the east side of the property, so that's the exact opposite.
Right.
And so then on those days where the wind doesn't work, we can either not hunt or go to the other property. Mm-hmm. Or one person can go to one property and one person can go to the other, and then you just come in from the other side. Oh. And so that's my idea it'd be great to have another property that sets up the opposite for that exact reason.
Right. So it's all I want to do is just this year, I have to, so my goal with shooting is to practice shooting this year strictly, I would say 90% of the time, from awkward situations. So I'm not just going to stand and shoot from 35 yards
from my barn.
From your
slide
barn,
the barn door open and shoot 30 yards out of it.
I'm going to be shooting more sitting, kneeling.
Kevin kneeling?
Yes. I'm going to shoot from. I want to master shooting my compound bow from awkward.
Love it. That's a great goal.
So that when I do get to shoot one from straight on, it's like a no-brainer.
That's a great goal.
And then it's for me. I've been maybe I'm overthinking, but I'm thinking about approaching the property different. Like I want. Like, for instance, the walnuts, we moved the tent. We had reasons we needed to do it this way this year because of overgrowth. But the walnuts, nobody shot a deer in the walnuts this year.
Right.
Which is not normal.
First year in a long time.
And that's because I think we fucked that area up.
Maybe.
So, that being said, I could have, but I failed with my camera and all that shit when Throbby Nooner came in. But anyways... I want to approach property.
I thought it was Thorny Daniels. You just called it Throbby Nooner.
Yeah, I can't. There's too many things going through my head. So, anyways.
You want to approach the property different?
Assuming it's going to be corn.
Yeah, we are assuming. I haven't asked. I can probably ask.
But then just talking with you guys about how, I don't know.
So approach the property different and get comfortable shooting uncomfortable. I think those are great goals.
Yeah, because I was never shooting just like, boom, standing up straight.
Sure.
There was always a fucking tree in the way. I was dropped my release. You know, your hands are freezing cold. You got a camera in the way. You've got all this shit going on. You're not just standing there taking a shot at a target.
Yeah. Now, you also got your first doe kill on camera. So I think understanding, okay, this is what I'm comfortable with filming. I got you a new, nice, lightweight mobile camera arm from Genesis 3D Printing. I got, you've got your old phone. So you're set up filming. Phone. Perfect. Fine. Great. You don't have to even worry about that anymore, right? So you can take those things off the table. Do you want to?
But that's not entirely true because I was constantly failing in a tent.
Oh, well, you said you aren't going to hunt in a tent.
We have 2 tents. I would like to put them somewhere that's usable.
Okay.
I think I have one out on that property that's very close to being in a good spot, but it's not.
Yep. Okay.
But I'm talking like 20 yards from being in a very good
spot. Are those your only 2 goals for the season?
Well, the one, approaching the property different, has a lot in it.
Yeah, it does.
There's a lot of places we don't hunt. We don't have stands. I like the idea of being more mobile.
Okay.
I, however, don't own mobile stands, but we have an XOP stand that I don't know if we want to leave it down this coming year and have it more as a mobile stand.
I ordered a new set of climbing sticks, and so there'll be 2 light sets of climbing sticks, one for my Lone Wolf and one for the XOP. You are welcome to be that to be your mobile stand. It's totally fine.
It was just interesting watching deer move this year and how it's I don't know, it was always out of reach, it seemed. We still have one stand that seems to be I don't know, in a good place.
That's our kill stand for sure.
Like yes.
Skyscraper has been up in the same place the least amount of time than any of the other stands, and we have killed more deer out of that stand than any other place on the whole property. And it's, in my opinion, it's based on the terrain. Like that stand kills because of what happens where it's located. And there's no reason to mess that up.
We'll just direction and terrain.
We'll just update the straps this year and make it more comfortable and leave it alone. It's a kill stand. Doesn't ever have to move.
But like for me, every stand needs to be updated and tweaked. And
I think some stands need to go in the garbage. I think they're that old, but they're not mine. And so they belong to a guy who doesn't respond to our texts anymore. He doesn't come to events. He didn't hunt at all this year. He doesn't respond to anybody.
Right.
He texted me right before hunting season, and then that was it. He didn't like I've invited him to things. He doesn't show up. He doesn't answer anybody's calls or texts. So what do? Just throw his shit away? I'm half tempted to do it. And if he's got a problem with it, I'll buy him 5 new stands. They have to be safe. So anyway, we're getting sidetracked.
But
here.
like, so how do you make, my thought process on this is, how do you make our property a property you live on and not just a pass through?
We can't control that.
There are things I think you could do to aid in that.
The reason that the north property is the property they live on is because
there's no pressure.
nobody hunts it.
Right.
And we hunted the fuck out of our property this year. So that's why they live on the north property and the next north property, because nobody hunts out there.
So then, knowing that they're going to be coming from the north into the south property and going back and forth,
So knowing
capitalizing on how we approach the property.
That's the only thing we can control.
Right.
That's it.
Because we are looking at the trail crossing camera.
Yes.
Is a constant.
It is a highway.
thoroughfare.
You're so British.
Of deer movement, and they're just going from
That
the north property onto ours to the north property.
That damn 8-point, he's still holding both sides, holding strong. Yesterday morning, 2 mornings ago. Son of a bee. Okay, so we're getting long here, and that's okay. There's other things we'll talk about for future activities or future podcasts on here. I have 2 more questions for you. One of them, do you have any hunting superstitions?
I'm sure that I do.
Like, is there something that you do every morning before you go in the woods? Or every time right before you go in the woods? Is there something that you do because you feel like it's good luck?
I mean, I have a system, but I wouldn't say it's based on luck. It's based on me, like scent control and all that stuff.
Superstition. Strictly superstition.
I would say no.
Okay. So I would say that we do. And it wasn't as successful this year as it was the year before,
So,
but it
yes,
was.
I do.
Okay.
Actually, it's
Okay.
weird.
What is it?
So when I hunt in the mornings in the dark, I like to pretend that I see the old owner of the property and I have a conversation with him, his spirit.
How long? Hold on. No.
Because I feel like it's good luck and he's guiding me in my hunt.
No laughing. How long have you held that inside without telling me that?
Since I started hunting there.
Okay. That's interesting because I talked to him in the woods as well.
Yeah.
And that I just got the chills. That's really cool. I
never got to meet him though.
No, you've never.
So
met
I'm
Ed.
going off of like I make it up, but it was his woods. It still is his woods.
Yeah.
So like when it's dark, you don't know what's going on around, and sometimes you see things. I would in my mind I would say, okay, that's Ed still roaming around his property.
Yeah.
And then it would be like him telling me I'm in a good spot, or this is I'm going to
giving
send
me
the
the
deer
chills.
to you. Or something like that, and that's why it's important to me to take care of the woods because
100% because it's his.
Yes,
that's cool. I was thinking more along the lines of like we listened to Sir Mix-a-Lot, "Baby Got Back."
Oh yeah,
on the way to the property. We listened to that. We have to listen for some reason. We listened to that the year before I shot a buck or something.
I think that we were listening to that on the morning I shot Buster.
Could have been, but I feel like we did it first when I shot a buck.
Maybe it was the day you
Spine shot that buck.
Yeah, they got the spine.
Anyway, so that was what I was thinking was what you would say, but I really like yours better, so that's cool. And then the last thing I have for you, and then we will close this out, is why do you hunt?
I would say mainly it's therapeutic for me.
I agree.
At this age in my life, it's just a spot to I would say first and foremost, it's like a quiet place to be. And then you kind of get to be one with nature, process life, go through any other thoughts. It's not always just about hunting. You go through, you're living and processing everything that's going on in life while you sit in the woods. I can tell you that it's because I'm putting food on the table, but I don't think that's the main reason I hunt. I think the main reason is because I fell in love with the woods. It's the therapy of it.
I agree. People don't know of this, you didn't really, like when you were introducing yourself, you didn't get into what you do as a living, but I think your life is noisy. Like noisy as in not actual just sound, but your life and my life, they're very noisy. There's music, there's clanking, there's clinking, there's children, there's activities, there's business,
I'm running
there's
constantly.
Music,
Yeah.
there's constant noise
It's like very chaotic. It's like systemized chaos.
Yes. And so that quiet time is cleansing.
And
it's
so that is why I started by saying I didn't think I could do that because
Yeah.
I didn't know what that was like.
I was just reading something about this the other day. Humans can get comfortable in the trauma response. And trauma not necessarily meaning something traumatic, but like that cortisol, that stress, you get. So when the cortisol is released, your body then fights it off or gets in like a defensive position or tries to counteract it. And so then you actually get comfortable with the stress because you know that what comes next is your body's attempt to fight it. And so you get comfortable noisy, and then you think, I can't live a non-noisy life. And then actually you learn that that's the opposite is
There's
10 times
there's
better.
also a jealousy for those. I watched the deer, and you would love, like, for me, I'm jealous that, like, I would love to just eat, fucking sleep. Like, I mean, right? So when you watch those beautiful
Hold on a second. Why
animals,
can't you do that?
because we have to make money
Your
and pay
wife
bills.
is your sugar mama. She can work, and then you can do exactly what you just said.
But you watch every one of these creatures, like, that's
that
it.
deer. Those deer are constantly afraid they're going to die.
We don't know that.
I mean, you're right. We don't. You're right. We don't know that.
I know that their main thing is where the fuck are they going to eat and drink and
It's
sleep,
survival.
and then they get into this little era of life where they just want to fuck
Okay.
and get railed and have chicky children and then move on. And then the dudes, they get to bust, have a kid, and leave. I'm not saying that we should do that. Couldn't.
Do I have to edit that part out?
I'm just saying, like, it's an interesting life.
If I named episodes, this would either be Generous Quarter or Bust and Leave. That would be the name of this podcast. But we don't name these podcasts. We just numbers and who the guest was or what the topic
I don't know what
was.
the rules are.
I think that's great. I think it was a great podcast.
Good.
Thanks for coming.
I'm going to get in your sauna.
And I'm just going to get in my sauna now. All right. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We will talk to you later.
Bye.
Epsteins aren't that big. Who's Epsteins is Mike Tyson's. What are they called? Brautines. I'm going to call them eye swords. Like an eyesore. Are we talking about hunting? I have a thigh sore. You're a thigh sore. You're a thigh for sore eyes. So do you think you have a hernia if you cough sitting down, you feel bubbles squirt out of your gut? I would say yes. I'd say that's a hard yes. I just got dizzy from that. That's a hard yes. With the Mark Postal cackle. It's interesting looking at those skulls versus his skull. Well, his nose broke off. I've never faced this way. Yeah, but his head looks like if you were to rip the skin off of my head versus Porter's. Oh, like they look younger to me over there. Should I still be talking into the microphone? Can we stop or are we starting? Whatever you want to do. Are we recording? Yeah. Oh yeah. This just goes at the end. Just like the good old days. Do you want to do this or do you want to? Yeah. Are you ready? Yeah. Okay. Where's my drink? It's non-alcoholic. It's 11 a.m. It's 11:30. That doesn't seem right. It's your day off. You're on vacation. It's not a total day off, but it's a day off enough. Hello? Am I good? Mm-hmm. Okay. Beat the meat like you're a butcher.